Rishi Sunak is going to be the UK's new Prime Minister after this period of huge political upheaval. Your reaction, and what does it say about the state of the UK right now?
Well, I think it's a broader comment, though. I think it's the state of Western democratic government. I think there's a lot of turmoil, not just in the UK, obviously in the United States, other parts of the West. But I do think the cataclysm that took place with Prime Minister Truss is going to cause them to get themselves together, because they really can't afford another disaster like that. I mean, listen, I lasted 11 days in the White House. She lasted 4.1 times that, right? So to me, that's something they can ill afford. Their approval ratings are low. But you and I both know that a lifetime in politics is a couple of months. So if they can just get on the right track, put the right policies in place, I think he'll do surprisingly well. He's a very competent guy. He's very well thought of. And so I wish him well.
I think it's pretty clear that Sunak has a lot of work to do, not just to win over the electorate, but also to firm up confidence in the economy and financial markets. Do you think the UK is actually investable right now?
Well, it's volatile, yes. I mean, long term, the UK is investable. I think the problem right now is that you don't have a lot of clarity. It's usually a good opportunity to invest in a situation like that. People are not going to like me to say this, but I actually think they should have another referendum on Brexit. Brexit did not work. You have to look at it empirically. They were 9/10 of the German economy prior to Brexit. Since Brexit, 6 years later, they're 7/10 of the German economy. And so I think if you're providing empirical evidence to the electorate, if they can dial down the nationalism, I would recommend another referendum. My guess is, based on the polling, that they would win that referendum. They need to rejoin the EU and knock off the nonsense. It's enough of this nationalistic fervor. Let's focus on what's right or wrong for the country as opposed to left or right for the country. And I don't know if he'll have the will to do that or the political capital to do that, but that would be the right thing to do for the British people and be great for their capital markets.
Seems like a pretty unlikely prospect at this point, though, right?
Well, but that's the beauty of being an entrepreneur. You say very unlikely things and then you hope that they happen, and you have to try to push that. But I really do believe it's in the best interest of the British people to realign themselves with the EU.
Talk to me about your focus here at FII. I think it's really interesting that this is, in a way, the ultimate division between business and politics. You have Wall Street elite coming into Riyadh over the course of this week, but no sign of any senior US officials. Is it a bad move for the administration to not be present here in Saudi Arabia right now?
So, again, I see the Saudi-U.S. relationship as, by and large, unbreakable. It dates back to Ibn Saud, the founder, and Franklin Roosevelt. Relationships like this is sort of like a Catholic marriage, man. Okay, they don't break up. Okay, they're forced to stay together, and there's just too many things that we rely on them for, and they rely on us for, and so sometimes having disagreements is healthy. People get to a better spot. I also believe that when you're fighting with your spouse, your business partner, in the world of politics, you start to realize, wait a minute, I shouldn't be pushing this fight too hard, because we both sides sort of need each other. So I'm hoping for a reconciliation at that political level. I predict that will happen, and it'll just take some time. There's some sore feelings probably around. And that's natural, being human, but you have to step back and look at the long-term relationship. These two countries need each other, and I'm hoping they put it back together.
Coming into the midterms, how damaging has this OPEC cut been for the president's prospects as he looks to issues like inflation and high energy prices? Yeah. He was expecting the Saudis to help. They say they're not acting politically, they're acting in the best interest of the oil market. Yeah. How bad has it been for him at home?
So I think the imaging is not great for him, but I think the mistake was actually made prior to the Saudi relationship. I think ultimately the U.S. had set itself up to be independent as it related to oil and gas. And for whatever reason, this administration made a decision to pull back. And I think that's sort of virtue signaling. It's very, very unrealistic. You would rather go from oil to natural gas to reduce carbon emission. Cutting off the oil is nonsensical. CO2 emission is actually going up because people are using coal-fired plants when they didn't need to. And so this is just rather than virtue signaling and doing things that you think are going to appease people short-term politically, why not lay out a 10-year plan and say, okay, this is what we're going to do to reduce carbon emission. These are the phases that we're going to go into. But in the meantime, we have this great technology in the United States, and we're going to make ourselves energy independent so that we're not overly reliant on any one of our allies. And I think that's ultimately the mistake that the administration has made.
Just quickly, from politics to markets, Jamie Dimon on CNBC only a couple of days ago saying that he expects the S&P has about 20% to fall from here. He also called a recession globally and in the United States over the next 6 to 9 months.
Yes.
You're saying we're on an upward trajectory, though. What's the disconnect?
Well, this is the beauty of coming to FII. I saw Jamie in the lobby here last night. We discussed that among many other things. I think he's cautious because he's paid to be cautious. Remember, the hallmark of Jamie, so many great things about Jamie, arguably the smartest financial services executive of my lifetime. I just have an enormous amount of respect for him. But remember, he's paid to be cautious. Okay, the steps that he took in 2006 and 2007 led to the preservation of J.P. Morgan during the global financial crisis. And so he's paid to be cautious. I think it's probably a little bit too bearish for me. I have said on your network many times that the markets, I think, are overestimating the negativity of inflation. I think the inflation is going to run off quickly. I don't see it as secular systemic inflation. It certainly wasn't transitory. I think we missized that because of the disconnection of the supply chain. Ultimately, you've had a lot of people here from Asia on the network. Ultimately, I think where we made a mistake and the Fed made a mistake is not understanding the zero COVID policy. Ultimately, in China, the zero COVID policy is saving people's lives. They likely looked at the hospital bed situation in China, and they look at the comorbidities and the demographics, the aging demographics, and they're like, okay, we have no choice. In order to save people's lives, we're going to a zero COVID policy. Had massive disrupting effects on the global supply chain, which contributed to the inflation. So ultimately, put too much money in the system, but we were doing that to save people and to protect lower and middle class people, and the supply chain stayed disconnected for too long, but it's reconnecting now. And you can just look at the 10-year break-even number on the U.S. TIPS, the Treasury protected, inflation-protected securities. They're trading right now, that break-even inflation is about 2.4%. The Fed does not want that to go below 2. Remember, the worst thing for a central banker is deflation, because that leads to debt destruction. People can't pay back their debt with dollars that are worth more than the ones that they borrowed. Inflation is something we can manage. We certainly don't want it close to double digits, but I think it's going to roll over. And when you walk the halls here and you see the technology that's about to inundate the global society and the global economy, that has by and large historically been very disinflationary. And so I would just caution people about being overly bearish, and you can see the activity in the markets over the last 5 days reflecting that.
Always appreciate the dose of optimism here on Squawk, Mooch.
Listen, I'm too short to see the glass anything other than half full. My angle on the glass looks pretty full to me.
Well, look, we appreciate the conversation as always. Thanks for joining us.